All right, here we go. Started the day off by mixing about 36 quarts of seedling medium here. We've got enough to do most everything that we're going to put out in the garden this year, with a couple of overflows up here. I'm going to label each of these before we get started, so I'm going to have a ton of writing to do. We have about 12 varieties of tomatoes. We have 6 varieties of peppers. We've got herbs and other perennial and annual flowers going into the garden to attract pollinators. We're going to actually start an asparagus bed this year. Fingers crossed. I haven't done that before. We've got melons and pumpkins, squash, cucumbers, Brussels sprouts, and some cabbage going in later. Today we're going to focus only on the peppers, tomatoes, and both the perennial and annual flowers that are going into the garden bed this year. We're going to let them germinate indoors for about 4 weeks and then move them out to the greenhouse, where we'll let them start to stabilize and normalize in their environment before putting them out into the actual garden. All right, so I'll be back in a little bit. Going to write up some tags so I don't forget what's what. We'll see you in a little bit. All right, so we've got about 150 of these bamboo plant markers. So we're marking the plants as we get ready to plant them in with the seeds, and then these will transfer to the garden when we actually do the transplant later this spring. All right, so these are some of the tomatoes we had in our garden last year that were very, very, very successful. They were great producers. All of these tomatoes are an indeterminate, so that means that you're going to get an indeterminate size of plant and size of fruit. I can say that these Virginia Sweets and these Cherokee Purples last year had multiple blooms for one piece of fruit. So that piece of fruit actually turned into 2 or 3 because of how big the blooms were. Again, these are all indeterminate tomatoes, which means that they're going to get an indeterminate size and an indeterminate size of fruit. The black crims last year, super pretty, beautiful color, and very, very tasty. Great on BLTs. These brandywines were both pink and orange when mature, and they were so pretty. Very, very, very delicious. Really great grower as well. Talked about that. The Virginia Sweets. These are fun. These green zebras make the best verde salsa. We actually canned about 4 quarts of it. Probably will be canning some more. It's a great replacement for tomatillos. If you don't want to grow tomatillos in your garden, these are amazing, and they're great for fried green tomatoes too. Nice and tart and crisp. These were probably some of the prettiest tomatoes I have ever grown in my life, and they do look like an orange when they come off the vine. Nice and big, really pretty, and really tasty. This makes a great salsa as well. You pair it with some mango and maybe a little bit of habanero, and you've got a really good salsa on your hands. So I'm going to go ahead and plant all of these. I've got them marked. Yes, I'm planting about 6 each. Sometimes the seeds germinate well, sometimes they don't, so it's easier to kind of weed them out, where if one failed, then I still have multiple plants that I can put in our bed. So we'll have 2 tomato beds this year. We'll have one for nothing but small cherry tomatoes, and the other one for large slicers, canners, and other juicing type tomatoes. So As mentioned earlier, we have two beds full of tomatoes, the canning, juicing, and slicing tomatoes, and then this box will be all of cherry tomatoes. I have two varieties of yellow cherry. One is pear-shaped, one is just small round, so we have these pear-shaped or pear yellow cherry tomatoes plus yellow round. We've got the San Marzin, also known as Roma or plum tomato, which also fruits out in a cherry type format. We've got a chocolate cherry, so that's a dark purple black cherry tomato, really good. All of these did really well in the garden last year. We are adding two new ones though. We're adding a small red cherry that we didn't plant, that's also an indeterminate, but it is still a cherry tomato, and I don't have any huskies this year. Most of these are going to be, small-ish size, around, about, nickel size. They're not really big, but they do put out a lot of fruit. So I'm just going to rinse and repeat, much like I did for the other box of tomatoes, and we're going to plant these and put them over under the grow lights. Still recording. Next thing we'll talk about is kind of all of the perennial annual flowers, herbs, and other pollinator attractors that we'll be putting into the garden. So we've got lots of really great blooming flowers that should attract all sorts of bees, which will allow for us to have a healthy pollination cycle with our plants, and then some pretty ones that can work as a trap. So sunflowers are great at trapping bad or non-beneficial bugs from entering the garden. Black-eyed Susans are very similar. All right, so we're back with our annual perennial flowers, culinary herbs, also medicinal ones as well. So we've got some dill and echinacea and chives and some chamomile. So we're going to plant some more chamomile this year. It's super pretty as well. Tiny little flowers. And again, a lot of these will attract all kinds of pollinators. Right now we're just kind of putting them in the containers, wrote all the labels. Looking forward to a lot of them, especially the perennials that will come back. But so for these gazinias and for the marigolds that we use as also companion plants, I will need to harvest more seeds off of these too. But the perennials should grow back on their own, which is kind of cool. I haven't planted perennials in a vegetable garden before, so I'm kind of looking forward to it. I'm a huge daisy freak, so I love all kinds of daisies. Gerber daisies, Shasta daisies, all of that. I just think they're pretty. And, it gives me something else to look at in the garden while I'm out there harvesting or pulling weeds. Look how pretty those are going to be. All kinds of great colors. And I plan to put some in my house, not just stare at them, from the office window. I'll probably start having some pretty little bouquets on my desk during the week. So this is more stuff I can have. Again, we're just putting these just below the surface. Give them several weeks to germinate. All of these will probably go out into the greenhouse end of February, first part of March, so that they have an opportunity to acclimate. I was out there earlier today, and it's 50 degrees outside. It's rather warm inside the greenhouse. I needed to water my bamboo. It was a little thirsty, but they overwintered really well, so I'm kind of happy about that. I had an opportunity to test out the big old greenhouse, how well the bamboo did, because they are not freeze tolerant. They don't survive in our area in pots. We are, I believe, zone 6B, and the coldest that I think this bamboo can get to is 7, so it doesn't do well. But wrap it up, put it into the greenhouse, still nice and green, doing really well. So next phase of garden, or I should say the greenhouse, will be getting these vegetables and stable for planting outside. Sorry, I had a bit of a brain fart. Also, I'm trying to open a package at the same time. That's not being very cooperative. But next year, the thought is that I won't be starting in the house again. All of this will happen inside the greenhouse. Everything should be stable, and if we need to get warmth out there, we can put a small space heater to kind of warm up the space, but I think everything will be safe enough. And I can use it for winter gardening, which I hadn't done this year, so I can grow some winter squashes. That will be cool. Have some great butternut squash for, late fall, winter time frame, around the holidays. That would be nice. Just needed to start. There we go. What you doing, Murph? You helping? Are you a helper? You a helper? No, you're not a helper. At least Hazel's not over there eating the dirt again. At least Hazel's not over there eating the dirt again. At least Hazel's not over there eating the dirt again. So I have a couple of overflow herb gardens. I've got one for my deck that will be going in, just because I laid it out there. It's pretty small, but as well as some in the kitchen window, because I like that as well, and having a little bit of fresh sprig here or there. I've got rosemary and basil so far. Right now we're going to add some cilantro. I'll have some cilantro in there later. Cilantro actually really likes cooler weather. It doesn't really do well late in the summer, so I'm probably going to move it back into the house in July time frame, so that I can keep some cilantro through the winter, because it does not like getting hot here. It does get pretty warm. Also, so the last thing that we've got after this sweet basil and cinnamon basil, I told myself I was planting any basil because I would probably have things sprouting up inside the garden bed, because my basil went nuts last year. My sweet basil was well over 5 feet tall by the end of the summer and blowing seeds everywhere. But I'll put this in the house most likely, and it's a great companion plant with tomatoes. It enhances their flavor, so it's always good to have in the garden with your tomatoes. So the last thing we have here is the lavender. You can't direct sow lavender without first doing what they call a cold stratify. So basically you have to place these seeds on a wet paper towel, wrap them up, put them in, a baggie or some other container, and stick them in a refrigerator for about 3 to 4 weeks. So that's what we're going to be doing next. It's called stratifying these so that they will germinate, and once they're done, then I will put them in here with the rest of the herbs and flowers going into the garden. All right, so as I said earlier, we would have a pepper box. That sounds funny, but I love it. We fell in love with these lunchbox style sweet peppers, kind of like a banana pepper, but on a scale of half the size of a small bell pepper. We'd take them with us on vacation. Great snack. So this year I'm planting about 4 different varieties of those sweet pepper and lunchbox like peppers. Last year I only planted 1. Was rather disappointed in myself. I'm going to plant a jalapeno and then of course a traditional bell pepper. I'm not planting habaneros this year. Our neighbor likes really, really, really hot peppers. I think last year he had a Carolina Reaper, so I'll just trade him some of my sweet peppers for an occasional hot pepper. Habaneros are prolific producers, and they take up a lot of space and a lot of resources, and you really only need 1 pepper for a recipe at any one given time. So what are you going to do with dozens and dozens of habaneros? So I'm not planting any habaneros this year. I'm just going to go and pester my neighbor for a couple when I'm ready to make some hot salsa. But these will be great, and everything else. The jalapenos are awesome. We'll definitely enjoy candying or pickling some of these sweet peppers. They're great as snacks. Like I said, we really, really, really enjoy them. Toss them into the cooler, take them out to the lake, take them to the beach, whatever. They're a great snack. So I'm just going to get this box ready and then go from there. So back to our peppers. Our jalapenos did really well last year. Awesome for salsa. The hubs just likes cutting one up occasionally and tossing it with whatever he's having for lunch or dinner. And as I said, the lunchbox peppers were a lot of our favorites. Just great cold snack. I do think I'm going to try and make some pepper jellies this year. That should be fun and interesting because you get both the hot and the sweet at the same time. So looking forward to that. This summer, so restock my pantry. We have some pepper jellies that we've used in the past, even fig jellies we've used in the past on like our charcuterie boards, and they're super tasty. Open. I'm having technical difficulties with these little plastic bags. All right, so we get these going in. So once we get all these planted, and this is, I believe, the last little bit of planting I have for today. That's these bananas. We need to water everything in while the soil is fresh and a little bit damp. We still need to water all of these little babies in so that they germinate. And they just need to go, half an inch or so below the surface. They don't need a whole lot. Peppers are super easy. And I realize I'm sowing a lot of this really, really, really early. It's the 3rd week of January. And last year I didn't start most of this until the middle of February, which lines up with our calendar from a frost standpoint. But I'll be honest, I want tomatoes and peppers in May, not June and July. Actually, I want them in June and July as well. But if I start them early, that means that they've got a little more time to full potential or harvest size in the late May time frame. So I can take some of this to the lake with us when we head that direction. I'm going to do the same thing with the melons, cantaloupes, watermelons, that kind of thing. I'm going to start them early and then move them to the greenhouse several weeks before they actually go into the garden, primarily because, well, I want some cantaloupe and watermelon earlier than later. So most of this, they say to start between 2 weeks before and as much as 4 weeks before. But a lot of this is going in at 6 and 8 weeks. Again, most of it's going to be in the house, getting an opportunity to grow in a very warm climate, not very humid, but warm. And then we'll go out into the greenhouse, March's time frame. So overnights will still probably be in the 30s. The daytimes will probably start getting up into the mid 40s, 50s. And then April, after we've had our last frost, which is generally the middle of April, everything goes into the garden. Should be out of danger at that point. Can't tell me how many times I've planted sweet potato vines before that last frost, only to have them just decimated. So I learned my lesson the hard way. Don't put them out yet. Even if you want to, even if the garden center's got them out, don't put them out yet. All right, so we're done now with what we're going to get germinating so far. So we've got tomatoes, peppers, as well as herbs and flowers going in. And then I believe next week I will start on the broccoli, cabbage, and cauliflower that we're going to put in. I'm going to go ahead and get that going. Do some Brussels sprouts as well. We've got some really nice Chinese cabbage. And then from there, we'll go into our beans and melons. And then the rest will be direct sow once we're ready to open the garden up. All right, so we're done now with what we're going to get germinating so far. So we've got tomatoes, peppers, as well as herbs and flowers going in. And then I believe next week I will start on the broccoli, cabbage, and cauliflower that we're going to put in. I'm going to go ahead and get that going. Do some Brussels sprouts as well. We've got some really nice Chinese cabbage. And then from there, we'll go into our beans and melons. And then the rest will be direct sow once we're ready to open the garden up. Okay, are you guys helping? No, you're not helping. You're not. All right, thank you. Murphy. The help is not very helpful. Okay, thank you. fireplace to just see while we're at it. Oh, I think got a nice little drink. And we're done with that. Grow, baby, grow. Okay. All right. So what we have finished today are all of our tomatoes, all of our herbs, flowers that are going into the garden area, our peppers, some asparagus to get going for our asparagus patch, and we've got things prepped for the rest of what we're going to put into the garden. So we've got broccoli, cabbage, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, squash, cucumbers, beans. So I've got sugar snaps, peas, and I've got pole green beans. We'll get those started in the next couple of weeks. Plus we've got sugar baby watermelon, so tiny personal sized watermelons. Great, they're awesome. Just throw those in the cooler to go to the lake. As well as cantaloupe. And one of the things that I will be putting back into the garden, I was hesitant to do so, but it's not going to go inside the area that we've got fenced in, are my loofahs. So we grew loofahs last year as an experiment. They were a lot of fun, but they're extremely invasive, so they're not going back into the garden area. But we did make some great loofah sponsors. All right, so this is it for now. See you next week when I'll be planting or starting some more seeds that going into our 20 by 30 garden area. Thank you for watching. See you next time.